Activate Your Introvert, the weekly show to help leaders build performance by understanding introversion. In this week's show, do introverts like being around people? Considering your team's belonging and security. And a discussion with Leon Bamforth. You may remember Leon's great discussion a few weeks ago. This week he's back with 3 interesting points. Conflict resolution, something he helps businesses with. Validate the valid, a brilliant phrase that perhaps we could all learn from. And the importance of competence, not confidence, which is always a good one for us to remember, especially when in front of a confident-sounding spokesperson, interviewee, or in a team meeting. COVID made it back in the news this week with a change of advice for people in the UK. I'm not sure if Peppa Pig changed his mind or was misquoted in the first place. But being more serious, I recently visited a friend who works from home and sat chatting in her office while thinking her chair and PC are set up in a way that many safety assessors would say was unsafe and likely to cause back pain or wrist pain. In the news this week was an issue for home working. Fall on walk from bed to desk is a workplace accident, German court rules. I doubt very much if it'll ever happen in the UK, but have you trained your team how to set up their desks properly while they're working from home? In the office, most offices have either had some kind of desk or screen assessment, or they're based on standard office equipment, which probably means they're all right. But that doesn't make sure that your team are knowledgeable enough to set themselves up properly at home. All this working from home and hybrid working means the good old office is changing. Perhaps we've become used to hot desking, or maybe not, but gone are the days when individuals could expect to make a cosy home within the office. Warm desking is the thing now. I'm not quite sure how it varies to hot or cold desking, but warm desking, where desks are shared, and at the end of the day, everything on them must be cleared away. Caroline Law, in The Week, said it makes sense with the move to hybrid working, but it also reflects a broader shift in middle-class life. In the past 20 years or so, white-collar jobs have become far more precarious. Whole tiers of management and administration have disappeared to software innovations. People must constantly adapt to new ways of working with more performance benchmarks. The next restructure may be only just around the corner. These days, we are all just passing by. How does that impact our feelings of belonging and security? Or, more to the point, how can we as leaders help to replace that physical feeling of belonging and security? Because it's something that all humans respond to varying degrees. Maslow's pyramid of people's needs may have its detractors, but he very clearly showed that people who don't feel secure in their role are not as likely to perform well. I'm not claiming it's an introvert or extrovert thing. It is nearly all of us. If you feel secure, it might not mean that your team do, because they may think they are just passing by. The talk of just passing by reminded me of a song that we used to sing at campfires, which ended with what might be a warning for us to consider team belonging and security as more important, lest our employees are just passing by more quickly than you'd like. See if I can get it right. Now, if you want to take some pictures of the fascinating witches who put the scintillating stitches in the breeches of the boys who put the powder on the noses of the faces of the ladies of the harem of the court of King Caractacus, you're too late, because they've just passed by. I decided not to sing the whole song, or even sing it at all, but if you ask nicely, maybe I will next week, because it'll be nearly Christmas. The other big news item this week was about people skills, after the chief executive of an American mortgage company fired 900 people on a Zoom call. I come to you with not great news, Vishal Garg told his staff at Better.com. Apparently, he didn't want to let them go, but made them all redundant by Zoom anyway, adding, "The last time I did this, I cried. This time I hope to be stronger." Last time? I think it's time to go and chat with Leon. Today I'm sitting with Leon Banforth. Leon is an award-winning speaker, consultant and mediator. He helps leaders build connected teams that share visions and avoid nightmares. Welcome, Leon. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you, John. Thanks for having me on.
Are you an introvert or an extrovert? And probably more importantly, what does it mean to you?
Well, I filled out a personality test, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago now, and that put me down as, for 100 people, I was in the top 99% extroverted. So I'm very, very, very extroverted. I think it got it slightly wrong. I don't think I'm quite.
It's only number 98, do you really?
Yeah, maybe 98 or 97. I'm very extroverted.
And what does that mean to you?
Well, what was useful learning about what extroversion and introversion meant is I understood myself better. So I understood why I reacted the way I reacted in crowds, or why I felt that, why I love speaking. It really fills me up speaking in front of an audience. And I gain energy from speaking in front of people. And extroversion helps me understand why that's the case. And also it's really useful for me to understand how other people differ and how actually the energy that you get. My brother, for example, is very introverted, and the way he gets his energy is when he's been over stressed, he needs to go into a darkened room and needs to, cut out the lights, and he needs that time just to once again refresh and recharge his batteries, whereas I recharge by being with people.
And I think that's the great point about all of this. It's understanding other people and how you can work with them better because you have that understanding. Just before we came on air, we were talking about validation and things that are valid and things that were invalid. You had a fascinating way of looking at it.
Yeah, I was speaking to a psychologist once, and she said this amazing phrase: validate the valid and invalidate the invalid. And you think, oh, what's that mean? That's a bit weird, isn't it? But what it means is the introversion and extroversion, it's really useful to know you're introverted, or really useful to know you're extroverted. And that's completely valid. You're not going to change that. It's so intrinsically part of you. It's absolutely fine to be introverted. It's fine that you need to recharge your batteries by staying away from people. Whereas other people need to charge their batteries by being out partying. There's nothing wrong with that. And it's completely valid to be introverted. What's invalid is for you to be sad about that, to say, oh, I shouldn't be like that. I should be able to go out and party and really enjoy that. I shouldn't have to hide away at home. Actually, if you need that for you, then that's perfectly fine. It's healthy even. So if you validate the valid, what's valid in that situation? In that situation, the fact you're introverted is fantastic, because we need lots of different types of people. And what can you do differently to an extroverted people?
So what you're saying is, if as an introvert, it's fine for me to be introverted, validate the fact I'm introverted, rather than saying, oh, because I'm introverted, I can't do this and I can't do that and I can't do the other. And I guess if we flip that as well, if I'm a leader, it's right to validate and understand and help people to understand that they're introverted or extroverted or whatever else, as long as what I'm then doing is helping them to build on that. What's wrong is to put them down because of it. What's wrong is to sit there and say, oh, they're no good because they are introverts, or they're no good because they're extroverts. Is that kind of a flip of what you were just talking about?
Absolutely. And when I go into businesses and I go and listen to people and have really intimate conversations with how they're doing, and even with my friends, I'll have conversations about how they feel and how things are for them. And often there's a sense of shame around, or not, maybe not often, but definitely sometimes there's a sense of shame around something that I can do that I can't do that someone else can do really easily. And actually recognizing that, my brother, for example, is introverted. He needs to take the time to recuperate and recover from a really high intensity social situation. And there's no shame in that. That's absolutely healthy and fine because that's how he's built. So it's completely valid. That's what it needs to do.
Knowing he needs to do that, accepting he needs to do that is a really, really good thing. And as a leader, knowing that your team or one of your team need to do that and understanding and helping them to do that.
Exactly. But what's invalid as a leader is to say, well, you need to go do it. You need to do this thing anyway. If you recognize, because we talk about energy, if you imagine you have a finite source of energy to start the day with, it's been described as an energy bucket. If you have a bucket of energy, then if that gets drained, then you don't have the energy to do what needs to be done. So if you're as a leader, you say to someone, well, you have to go out there and you have to interact, recognizing that maybe they've met the limit and then maybe they need the time to recuperate before they can go out again. Actually, that's totally valid, because if you force them to do things that just drains their energy, then eventually they're going to get burnt out. So it's invalid to force them to do something that's going to damage them in the long term. It's absolutely valid to say, well, okay, you need this time, but I've got an important task, so we can maybe extend the deadline and you need to do it in a different way that works with you. Being really clear about what you need is fine, but asking them to do things that are against, a deep part of their personality is not helpful. So it's invalidate the invalid and validate the valid. And I'll often look at a situation and say, what is invalid here and what is valid?
And that's a great question, perhaps that all of us can ask ourselves more often. We were talking as well about SMART goals, which we may have different views on, but you came up with a great example about SMART conflict resolution.
Yeah, I use this all the time in my mediation and in my working as a consultant in businesses, that we hear SMART goals to death, don't we? We get so bored of them.
Oh, yes.
But actually, it's a really valuable way of looking at conflict resolution, because often in a conflict situation, we are attacking people. We're a phrase I use all the time is be a surgeon, not a soldier. So we throw in the grenade in there. You're an idiot. You're so stupid. You didn't understand what I'm saying.
You're an introvert. You're whatever. Yeah.
You're an introvert. Yeah. You're attacking something that people can't change. So instead, if you be really specific, so if you have SMART conflict resolution, what's the smallest thing you can change? So for example, if you are upset that one of your introverted team members is not contributing in a team meeting, you could go to them, and rather than saying, you're not contributing, I'm sick and tired of you not contributing, this just isn't going to work for us, and throwing the grenade in there, what can someone do with that? They can't do anything with it.
Not going to be useful at all.
It's not useful. Instead, be smart about it. Be specific. Say, I noticed you're not talking up a lot in team meetings. If you can also I recognize that actually maybe that's difficult for you. However, you've got really important things to share. So what I want to do is at the next team meeting, I'm going to come to you and I want you to contribute your thoughts and what you think of the situation. So you've been specific. It's measurable. You can see exactly how they're going to achieve what they want to achieve, and they know how to achieve what you want them to achieve.
Yep.
And then what's the A is it's achievable for them. It's like, okay, well, I can do that. You're not saying, go and move a mountain. You're not saying go and become extroverted, go and do this impossible thing. Actually, no, it's achievable for them to speak a bit more in the meeting.
Even if you need to help them to do it and you need to change the way the meeting runs, but which you can do, but it's achievable.
Exactly. And they need the support and the, but the fact is, their ideas are often really useful. I often go to find these interviews to people that have worked out all these problems that we're going to come across. So it's specific, measurable, achievable for them and for you. It fills what you need them to do, but also it does it in a way that's useful to them. It's realistic, because actually, can they do that? Well, yeah, they can. Can they change to become extroverted? No, they can't. Can they change if you've decided that they're stupid and label them stupid? Can they change being stupid? Like, well, I can't do anything with that. So you're realistic, but also it's timely. You know exactly what's going to, when it needs to happen by, and what needs to happen. So it's smart conflict resolution. Be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. And in that way, you become the surgeon, not the soldier.
I really like that example. Thank you. Could we finish up quickly with a tip for an introverted team leader to help engage his team?
Being aware that confidence and competence are not correlated. And so just paying attention to who your team are and recognizing that the thing that matters is how successful and how much output they've got at the end of it and whether they can complete the tasks.
Like that. And equally, perhaps for an extroverted team leader who's wanting to get all of her team engaged and maybe she's struggling with engaging some of the introverts.
Take the time to listen to them, to really find out about them, really find out what makes them tick, really find out what they want to achieve. And as you listen one-on-one rather than in a big group situation, they're much more likely to engage and tell you the things that they're frustrated with or that they're excited about.
Love it. Thank you. Leon, it's been really good talking to you. And I know we could talk for ages, and we probably will once I press the stop recording button. But just for now, how can listeners get back in touch with you?
The easiest way is probably my website, www.leonbanforth.com.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been great to talk.
Thank you, John. It's been a pleasure.
A couple of great points I took from that discussion. Competence or confidence. Validate the valid. Invalidate the invalid. And smart conflict resolution. What do you think? And how might you put one or all of them into practice? Do share your thoughts on the Facebook page, Activate Your Introvert. So this week's question, do introverts like or dislike being around people? It came up after a keynote I gave recently about introversion. And as it's the party season, no, not the number 10 party, just it's that time of year when many people like to party, I thought it was worth revisiting that question. The simple answer, of course, yes, introverts like people. We, as a human race, are all sociable creatures. We all need a level of human connection. But as an aside, last week I was out walking and it rained. No, really rained. My coat, like most waterproof coats, is designed for being in the rain, but after a while of this torrential downpour and my continual walking, the coat was overloaded with water. I started to get damp and then wet. I'm sure some coats would take longer and some less time before being overloaded with that torrential downpour, but in the end, most of them will get their occupants wet. Just so with human socialising. We are designed for it, but eventually we can get overloaded by it. Some of us will be exhausted more quickly than others. Introverts will get de-energised, but that doesn't mean they don't like being around people. I still like wearing my coat, but after getting home last week and taking it off, I really didn't want to put it back on again until it had dried out. The feeling of being a drowned rat was not one I want to repeat for a while. I'm John Baker. Thank you for listening. I hope you found it useful. There's a new episode every Thursday at activateyourintrovert.co.uk and your favourite podcast provider. Till then, go be introversial, activating your introverts, building your business.